a child who's on the spectrum. He's very open about that. But what I loved was that he left it open-ended enough that what the doctor said to the Ray Romano character was, well, we could get you diagnosed, but if what you've come to me with is that you're having problems with certain things, would you like to just jump ahead to try to deal with those things?
Exactly.
Or do you want to focus on the diagnosis? And his character decided, I'm not going to worry about the diagnosis, I'm going to worry about solving the issues. And he started therapies to be able to help him to deal with things. And we got to see the evolution of that character. And I just thought that that probably did so much for people who had been feeling a little bit on the outside of life and not understanding why some things just didn't work for them or make sense for them. I thought it was really well handled.
Right. You know, and that's such a very important subject, Shannon, and I think that there's so many different levels of feeling on the outside. You know, I mean, it can start with just social anxiety to some extent, and then there's a million different types of what we call, you know, disorders or disabilities that make you feel, you know, I just don't fit in perfectly. And whether they're things like obsessive compulsive behavior or anxiety or an eating disorder or whatever it may be, the value of, I always say this to the parents when I first meet them, is that don't let the diagnosis scare you. It's just a name. And the only benefit it has two benefits. One benefit of having a diagnosis is that you will be able to access funding. That's one thing. In certain cases, for instance, right now with autism, which Asperger's is still classified in the autism spectrum disorders, although it may not really fit there, nevertheless it's there. You therefore, with Asperger's, do qualify for insurance funding, which I think is a huge benefit. And not just mental health care, a lot of insurance funding. So, you know, medical care insurance funding, which is fantastic. The second thing, though, is that the other benefit is that once you are labeled, for lack of a better word, because the downside to being labeled is that you just like feel even more odd, I suppose, about things. But receiving that label allows you to kind of a shortcut to see, oh, other people who have this label have done this, this, and this, and it's worked for them. So, for example, if I have PTSD, if I have post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm going to probably go and try a variety of interventions, but I will try those that have been most successful for people with PTSD, for instance, tapping or EMDR or something like that. And those things are, and I wouldn't necessarily, if I didn't have that label, if I just felt really anxious all the time, I wouldn't necessarily know to go try those things. So the same thing with Asperger's. We know that if you have Asperger's, cognitive behavioral interventions are extremely helpful to you. Perhaps some medication can also be helpful and so on. Now, if you feel the need for a diagnosis, as I said, we can always help you. If you don't, and if you just want to learn more about Asperger's, I think personally over time, I have enjoyed the most and learned from reading Tony Attwood's work. Tony Attwood is a psychologist who's in New Zealand. Most of his work has to do with Asperger's, and he's an expert in this field, and he has not only a lot of books about what it's like to have Asperger's, but also a lot of books on how to help yourself, how to recognize the areas that are difficult and how to intervene. So Tony Attwood, any of his books will be most likely helpful.
And I think there's a lot of information on wrongplanet.net too.
That's
about
right.
Asperger's.
That's right. And if you want to talk about that, maybe, because that is true, very helpful too.
Wrongplanet.net. You'll have an opportunity to connect with a lot of individuals who are on the autism spectrum and in jobs that are dream jobs. You know, they're working.
That's right.
They're working at Disney. They're working at NASA.
Right.
They're working at every top corporation, and they talk freely on wrongplanet.net about the things that they've discovered and the things that work for them and they give each other advice. And wrongplanet.net. It's great.
And I guess that's another benefit that I wouldn't have thought about years ago, but I guess we can say that now, is that, you know, once you're part of this group, it's actually a group. You know, there are people out there that are peers that you can communicate with about how it feels and what things are easy and what things are hard and all that, getting through life. But I mean, you know, we're all part of some group, you know. I'm classified in a multitude of different ways. I'm a female, that's one group. I'm Persian, that's one group, you know. So we all have labels, but we shouldn't let them mean more than they do.
But it's sweet when you find your tribe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you just fit in. It's just sweet. Okay, I want to move on to this next question here. Hi, Shannon. Thank you. Okay, there's a little bit of confusion, but it's good confusion. We replayed when you weren't here the other week. We replayed an oldie but a goodie when you were on the show, and apparently it was a couple of weeks before Byron Katie was going to be on. So there was discussion about Byron Katie, and people misunderstood and said they thought we were bringing Byron Katie back. So now I want to. So we're going to be in contact with Byron Katie to see if she'll come back on. But they said, thank you for bringing Byron Katie back. Can you please ask her how I get my brain reset to doing positive work for my autistic child? To be honest, I'm burned out. And I wanted to share this today because we don't have Byron Katie yet, but I wanted to share this because I think you have some great advice for this. And I know that there are lots of parents here at the, school's about to be over, is just over, and a lot of people are feeling burned out right now. So they go on to say, when there are days that my teenage son gives me a hard time, as expected of a teen, I'm ready to throw in the towel and walk away. After all, if things don't turn out well for him when he's an adult, I'll be dead already. What prompted this is the issue of less healthy foods. I cook, research, and get supplements together for my son's health. My husband allows occasional indulgences. Then, when the allergies get bad, I get asked, what did I add to the diet? Supplements, etc. Ugh! All in capital letters with 3 exclamation points. Sorry for screaming. I secretly dream of abandoning the family and moving to Hawaii and working at a beach cafe. Sorry, I'm having a moment. It'll probably be better by the time Miss Katie comes on, and thank you for listening. I wanted to share this because I think it's so honest. And if everybody is honest, everybody has at least a moment or two of this. And I want to send you an air hug, right? Because you're not the only person to ever feel this way. And I think it's important for us to talk about this because sometimes things get so bad that people do leave and go to Hawaii or go worse, right?
That's right. And it is so honest. I just felt it as I read it. And first of all, as Shannon says, hug, but my heart goes out to you because you really sound like you are burning out. So I have a couple of suggestions which may be a little odd, but I'm going to suggest them nevertheless. First of all, if you love Byron Katie, you should do the work. At certain times of my life, when I first got introduced to Byron Katie, and thanks to my very dear good friend, shout out to Stan Kurtz, who has always, whenever he has entered my life, has been helpful in some way or another. What I really do recommend is that you do the work, which is, it's Byron Katie's work. It's a certain procedure, it's a process that you learn, and it does absolutely help you see things a little bit differently. It is very effective. It requires just you writing things down in a certain way. It's very easy. It's not difficult. I know that it's called the work, but it's not work. It's very easy to do. Once you learn the process of how to describe things verbally and how to write them down, you'll do that with any concept you can pick. And each time you write a concept down and you write it in this particular way that Byron Katie teaches you, then you look at it again and you're like, oh my God, I didn't even see things the way that I should have. Like, wow, the truth is, and you see things from a completely different perspective, which really does help. It produces tremendous calm, and it is a very effective process. You can purchase her work through books, but she also has tons and tons of DVDs and videos and all kinds of training material. The first thing I had from her was books on tape, and I would listen to it in my car, and it's fabulous stuff. So that I do recommend. The other thing I recommend, we've all been in this place, and this is not about, and we'll talk a little bit for a minute about your teen, but this is really not about your teen. This is about the fact that you are worried about things. And as a mom, I know how that feels, and I know you know how that feels, Shannon. And we go through life worrying about every possible thing that could go wrong, will go wrong, and it just before you know it, it's a mountain of anxiety that you just don't know what to do with. And that's what this is. You are concerned that things will not get better, that things will get worse, that you won't be around, that your son will need you and you won't be able to help. And that's the stuff that you're going to need to work on through Byron Katie's work. But at the same time, we need to take care of you in order for you to actually be able to cope for a little bit longer. And the lesson in this is self-care. It's not about what more can I do for my son. It's about self-care. And it's very hard for us as parents to momentarily, and I'm going to use the word abandon, because that's what you feel like you're doing. When we pay attention to ourselves, we feel like we're abandoning our kids. And that's not the truth. You simply need to take care of yourself first. That is God's will. So what I would suggest for you, and at this point, and it might be an outrageous suggestion, but is to see a psychiatrist, perhaps request some help medically for anti-anxiety, anti-depression, those types of medication. It's the same medication for anxiety and depression. And I can tell you that it just does take the edge off, and it will make you worry less. Worry is one of the most draining emotions we possibly can have. And I think you need a break. And so if your husband or anyone else, take 2 days and go to the beach and just hang out and do nothing. Or take a couple of weekends, or just take 1 day a week. I mean, do stuff that it's just as important for you to do so that you don't burn out, and stop worrying. Nothing is going to happen. Your son is going to be fine. Even if he has a few infractions here and there, it's going to be fine. We become so dogmatic and so perfectionistic about certain things. And I promise you, as a parent of 3 children who are all almost grown up, when I look back, I worried about so many things. Oh my God, I worried about, were they getting enough sleep? Were they eating this and that and so on? And perfectionism is, yes, great, to some extent it moves us ahead in life, but to some extent it just wears you out as well and doesn't allow you to experience the beauty of what is right now and what's around you. And, thank God that your son is at his age and able to do all the things he's doing right now. Thank God that he can occasionally treat you like a typical teenager. There are parents who would dream of that day. So there's always a positive side, and I can completely understand that you're not seeing it right now, and I think it's because you're exhausted and you need help yourself. You need to focus on yourself.
We've been trying to do the Mindful Thursdays every Thursday,
yes,
and talk about self-care as well. And I'm right in this neighborhood with you in terms of, I think it's God's little irony that most of the time our teenagers become teenagers when we're somewhere in the menopausal years and we're changing hormonally. We've talked about that a little bit before too. Mm-hmm. But somebody said to me this morning, and I love Byron Katie and the work, and I will say this, that I have never found anything that helps with anger and resentment like Byron Katie's the work. There is nothing, because it helps you to see it from all sides of the equation. Yes. And talk about clarity. And somebody was kind of doing that with me this morning, and because we were talking about self-care and how and in terms of what everybody else needs, if I were to write down a list of who is my priority, I would be somewhere like 13th on my list, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody was saying to me this morning, okay, you have a child who at one point was deemed special needs. Let's think of you as being special needs for a moment. How about if we just say, let's just assume, because you have some health issues now, you're the special needs thing. And if you were a special needs child, would you allow anyone to do to you what you have done to you? And I was like, oh, well, that's just horrible. Right. I would never allow, I had this birthday party for 13 boys yesterday, and so I didn't eat dinner until like 7:30. I would never have allowed that to happen to anyone else within the, my perimeter. I would never have allowed that. So I offer that up. Today I'm trying to treat myself as though I'm special needs and say, okay, I have to, because the most pivotal thing that they said to me is that when we really care about our kids and we want to teach them. And I want my child to eventually be able to take care of himself. And the single best thing that we can do is model that. So what I'm teaching him is that other people's needs come before his. And that is not what I mean to be teaching him.
Right.
So if I can't do it for myself, I'm going to do it just so that I model it for my kid. And I offer that up to you, because it's hard. We're in a mode where we think we have to do everything. And I see that you're researching and cooking and doing all those things. But what are you doing for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, just, realistically, just take a breath for a moment and think, okay, my son has gone off the diet a couple of times and he's gotten back. I mean, so there might be a rough day, but then a day later he's back. So I kind of tell my kids this. It's like, to some extent, just letting the universe flow the way it is flowing is much, much better than working up all your own biochemistry and producing so many chemicals inside you that are just harmful. So, and that's all just our own perceptions. It's just, if you knew, and this is one of the things I always try to remind myself, if you knew that everything happens perfectly as it should, and that's a very important thing to grasp, everything happens perfectly as it should, you'd relax. You need to relax. There's the infractions are part of what should happen. Everything in your universe that happens is perfectly as it should, and so just let it be, and stop worrying. God knows what he's doing.
My favorite quote, which I need to put up in my office now, is from that first Marigold Hotel movie. It'll all be okay in the end, and if it's not okay now, then it's definitely not the end.
That's right. That's
I love
perfect.
Because then I go, oh, right, okay, all right then. All right, we should take a break, but we're still sending you air hugs. Let us know how things go. And we're going to come back with a bunch more questions, so stick with us. I love that film.
Hi guys, welcome back. For the month of May, I thought it'd be really neat if we made our own bird feeders. What's cool about it is once it's done and it's hung in your front yard, backyard, balcony, or whatever outdoor area that you have, your kids will be able to observe the bird feeder and tap when they see birds coming over and feeding from it. Like, oh my gosh, oh, so exciting. Do you see that? Sorry, I got distracted. I'm just so excited about all the different birds I've been seeing now that I have a bird feeder hanging outside. Anywho, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are 2.5 cups of birdseed, half a cup of boiling water, 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, a spatula, twine, scissors, wax paper, and cookie cutters. Alright, now that I got your materials, it's super easy. I have my boiling hot half cup of water, and I'm going to take my 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, and I'm going to pour them in and stir it. The reason I pour it in the water first all by itself is to make sure that the gelatin dilutes really well, and I can stir it up real nicely. Now that it's been all stirred together, I'm going to take this liquid and pour it into the birdseed, making sure to scrape up all the gelatin that we diluted. Now I'm just going to stir it all up. Okay, now that this is all mixed up, I'm going to take my wax paper and put it on my table just so I don't make a mess. And then I'm going to take my cookie cutter and lay it down. I'm also going to take a piece of string and cut it, about 6 inches long. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the cookie cutter halfway full with our birdseed mixture. And then I'm going to take my string, fold it in half, I'm going to place it in the center. This way you can hang this up once it's done and dry. Okay, now that it's full, I'm just gonna pack it in. So now that this is all compacted, it's gonna take about 6 hours for the gelatin to get completely hard. If you take it out too soon, the whole thing's gonna fall apart. So let's wait a little bit and I'll see you guys in a few moments. All right, it's been 6 hours now, so let's see if this little guy worked out. So I'm just gonna pull him up and pop him out, okay? And here's my finished bird feeder. All you have to do now is hang it outside and wait for all the great things you're gonna see. Like, oh, I see another bird. This is so exciting. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the activity and keep me up to date with all the different birds that you and your child see outside your property. Until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet is here with us, and she's just being fabulous as always and answering your questions live. Remember that you can be writing in questions live. I've got some that I promised that I would get to. We've got a lot, and I gotta stop talking so much. So we're just gonna plow in. Hello, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. Update on the milk, because we had the mom who wrote in about stopping her child drinking milk. Once I gave it another week and some of the stimming behaviors stopped, my daughter let me hold her for the first time in over a year. When people talk about, and we have to say this up front, that going gluten-free and casein-free is not appropriate or effective for everyone, but for the people that it is appropriate and effective for, this is not unusual to see these kinds of results. So I don't know about you, but I certainly recommend that people at least try it, because I don't think there's a way of knowing who it's going to be effective for and who it isn't.
Absolutely.
So daughter let her hold her for the first time in over a year. I mean, actually hold and hug her and rock her. I bawled like a baby. Ha ha. Thank you for giving me the push to go cold turkey and get rid of the casein in our diet. I do have a question about reactions after being aggressive. She had a recent increase in aggression, and this past Friday pushed her brother down 16 stairs before I could get to him. That was bad enough, but after, she laughed for over 15 minutes straight and talked about how funny it was. Her pediatrician gave us a referral to Kennedy Krieger to the neurobehavioral unit for assessment, but I wanted your perspective about laughing when she aggresses or hurts someone. Thank you guys for all that you're doing, and much love. And that comes to us from our West Virginia mom. We have names for different moms, she's our West Virginia mom.
Right. And I first of all, I know the Kennedy Krieger Center. It's really fantastic. The neurobehavioral unit. We have several people from there. Arts from there, Dennis is from there. We have a lot of people from there. One of our people is interning there right now. There's a lot of people that we know, and it's a fantastic place for both assessment and treatment of severe challenging behaviors. It's a very unique place in the country. I don't know, maybe, but from what I recall from what you've described of your daughter, I don't think you need to go to that level. And maybe you can give us more information in the future, and I would recommend you look up the neurobehavioral unit at Kennedy Krieger to see if it's more appropriate for your child, because I just don't know her personally. I can't really tell you one way or another. I just feel that what you're going through is easy to handle. It's not that hard to handle if you had a good behavioral team in place. And sometimes when we do go cold turkey with these things, our kids, there's two possible things that could be happening. A, she's just missing. So let me talk a little bit about what happens when we have the foods that we're not supposed to have, casein as an example. So the reason that these foods are not good for us, for particular people, is that these are the two types of proteins, casein and gluten. Casein being the protein in milk and dairy products. And when you typically, before it was so toxic, and if you are able to break foods down, what's supposed to happen is that you will drink the milk, your body will now metabolize this product and turn it into peptides, which are chains of amino acids, and then turn it again down into amino acids, and then the amino acids are what provide nutrition to the brain. Now, if there's something wrong with the process of metabolism and breaking this, if you can't properly digest and break down this particular protein, which many of our kids can't, you will break it down partially so that it's a peptide chain instead of an amino acid. So, and it never turns into individual amino acids, it just remains as a chain. Now, a chain of these amino acids then can, and this is sort of, can not only leak through the gut, essentially what it means is that it leaks into our bloodstream and it mimics endorphins. These chains of peptides from casein peptides are similar to our internal endorphins, so they make us feel kind of, high.
They call it an opiate effect.
An opiate effect. It's kind of, we also refer to it as runner's high or so on. You know, when you're a marathon runner, you are producing a lot of endorphins. When you produce a lot of endorphins, you're kind of like opiate effect. So that is a pretty pleasant effect. I mean, people do marathon running in order to develop that effect. People are runners because that effect is so incredibly addictive and potent. So there's no question that if you now take away a food product that made your child feel that way, she's going to become a little bit aggressive because she's not under the opiate effect. She's seeking it out, in fact, and she's not getting it, and she doesn't know how to bring it about anymore. And it's kind of like stopping a opiate drug. You're now all of a sudden reacting to the world as it is. And so you become a little bit more aggressive. The laughing is either simply one of two things. It's either sort of a die-off reaction, which we often talk about. A lot of our kids have this kind of reaction when they're just coming off a medication, which would be coming off the opiate effect, or she doesn't have the ability to understand that it could hurt him, so it just looks funny. I mean, if you think about it in cartoons and such, we often see people falling and it's funny because we know that there's no pain or hurt involved because it's a cartoon. And see that, so for her, it's a matter of perspective taking and a matter of deep understanding of inferring that, oh, if my brother, or I think it is a brother, falls down the stairs, it's very scary and he could get hurt. It just looks funny. So there's no bad intention there. It's just a reaction that she's having. These are not serious things. These are things that can be handled if you have a behavioral team in place. Shannon, do you remember how old she is?
I want to say 4.
So she's very, very young. I mean, this, if you have a really, I don't know if you have ABA.
This is the young woman who for a while was a workshop therapist for one of our remote clients, and she's desperately trying to get services.
Into our services.
Yes.
That's, I think, what
she's
you
using
need.
skills. You gave her skills.
Okay, right. And what you're trying to get into, perhaps one of our Virginia, we still don't have a West Virginia site, so it's a little bit difficult, but look around and see if there are other providers. Otherwise, you might need to hire and train a team of people, which we've done numerous times as well. Our remote services helps you with that, which means you basically hire a bunch of college students and we will train them completely, set up a program, give you a board-certified supervisor, have the person come out to you regularly, set up the program, watch over and take care of things. Now, this is not the only thing, obviously, that you would gain in a program. Not only would this be placed under control and your daughter would be taught not to do this, but she would learn a lot of skills. I mean, 3/4 of our program is teaching skills. And once you have more skills, then behaviors generally dissipate. So aggression, again, remember, is usually an expression. I think in this place, if she could say, whoa, I feel really weird, she'd probably be verbalizing how she feels. Stick with it, stay with it, it will adjust. Generally speaking, 3 weeks or so past the aggression, it should start to dissipate.
Okay. And then keep us posted, please,
Yes.
so that we're aware. But die-off is such an amazing
process.
And I even, I mean, this may sound weird, but I suggest smelling your kid. Somebody finally told me to do that with Jem, and it was fascinating to me because he would giggle and laugh, and we called him the drunk elf, and then I would smell his head, and it would smell like we were in a bakery and they were raising some bread.
You did tell me that. Yeast, yeah.
And then there were other times where his breath would smell like brandy. Give and sometimes you can't tell it from smell, but it's very interesting.
Absolutely, and if she's reacted so positively to casein, it might be appropriate for you to now look at gluten as a possibility and to try it out.
And also look at yeast and sugar and all of those things, because if it's this big of a thing, it might be. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with some questions that have come in just recently on the live feature. So somebody needing some help with what to do in the summer, which we're going to be talking about a lot more in the coming weeks. All right, stick with us. And you have somebody who wrote in a question.
Well, today is the One Hope Act Today for Military Families 10K and 5K Run, Walk, and Family Fun Festival.
Thanks for coming out to support this awesome cause.
What I'm trying to accomplish here is to get more people involved, more people to be aware of autism as a disorder, so that they can be more involved in this effort to help people find resources.
Pull that belly button in, get a nice balance there.
This is an incredible event. I'm very passionate about it. Autism is affecting so many kids across the United States, and I also support our military.
1, 2, 3, 4.
My name's Gunnery Sergeant Sean Tajma. I work with the School of Infantry West. I'm currently running with 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I personally involved with this because my son Jacob has autism. I just want to say thanks to ACT Today for what they're doing to help my family and other military families with autism.
Here we go, let's hear it for the 2nd Light Infantry.
Some of the main sponsors here. Of course, One Hope Wine is the title sponsor.
What we do is we donate 50% of our profits back to different partner charities, one of them being ACT Today that does a fantastic job.
ACT Today is very dear to my heart because when my husband was deployed, they were there when we didn't know how we were going to make things happen. They give so much to the military family, and it comes at a time when you just don't know how you're going to make ends meet. So to me, it's more than just an event, and it's more than just a grant. It's a gift.
All right, you guys, have we gone over the rules?
Thank you all to the teams, to the individuals that donated to this fantastic cause out here again this year. The event got larger.
People ask me why military families with autism. Why does ACT Today have that as a special program? I'll tell you why. Because our military families should not have to fight 2 battles. One, to protect our country, and another, to get services for their children. They move so often. Every time they move, they have to start again. We owe it to them. And it just was a tremendous success. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for taking part in it.
Check this out, Marine. See all these wonderful people? All you gotta do next year, Marine, Devil Dog, 2 for 100, sign up with me, staff or an email, and I'm gonna take you out here, do a little 5K, little PT early in the morning. After that, you're gonna have the time of your life. After that, I might even be able to get you a letter of appreciation, maybe a little libo time. How's that sound?
Sign up for next year, because this is an event that comes on and on. It's a win-win situation here.
We had a couple of questions. First of all, somebody wrote in and said to welcome to Matt, and we have to say that because we have Matt now as our online programming producer, and he's here and doing a wonderful job. So they said, welcome, Matt. Thank you for joining the autism-live family, and that came from Haircut Mom. So thank you to Haircut Mom, who we love. Okay, somebody wrote, and at first I thought it was that they mistyped, but I don't think they did. They said hell and good morning. I thought it was hello. I don't think so. They said, I'm already having a rough summer and it just started. I have 2 boys, 5 and 4. My 5-year-old has high functioning autism. He's not enrolled in any camps and out days are long. Can you please give me advice on how to add structure to our days? I was thinking of taking them swimming some mornings and maybe setting up some kind of activity schedule, but don't know where to start. He has lots of toys, but often chooses to whine and be disruptive instead of doing a puzzle or coloring. How long do I run it for? Should I include rewards? And thanks for your help.
Yeah. So, yes, I think you do need a bunch of activities for the kids, and that's going to make things a lot easier. I think we have this huge family of guardians that we all depend on, so I always want to tell people just use the family of guardians, because we've 2,200 therapists out there who do these activities. If you're near a CARD center, you might want to just get summer services from us and go to one of our centers. We have summer programs at all of our centers. You literally can come in, you can get everything from training for yourself to just dropping your child off for Camp Safari or one of our various summer activities. And your child will get one-to-one care from us. So that's, of course, ideal. And if short of that, you just need to try to enroll in as many summer programs as possible for both of the boys. I used to do that back to back. I had such regimented summer programs for my kids, which involved a lot of driving for me, but keeping the kids occupied, I think, is probably the biggest thing you can do right now.
Absolutely.
It's really tough. Our kids are out of school, and it's just amazing. And when you have two children on the spectrum, it interferes with each other, and it's so incredibly difficult. So ideally you would have programs running for both boys, and that would be what you really need. And I don't know where you are. Do we know where they are?
No, we don't. But I love the idea of, first, since your 5-year-old is high-functioning autism, a lot of times people will say, oh, they don't need stuff. It's just the exact opposite. So, looking at, can you get in a center-based program, preferably with CARD? I will tell you one of the things that we always did, because I'm like the thrifty person. So the first thing that I would do when I was setting up the summer schedule is I would look at the local library schedule, because they have all kinds of programs and things. They'll have a reading thing on Monday. So I'd find all the free programs first.
Yeah, and the Y also has really, really good programs for kids. They also have a lot of good resources. They have often swimming pool or a place where you can actually do some athletic activity, gym. Anything physical will help your children calm down a little bit.
And every museum has something that is maybe there's one day a week where it's free, or one day a month. We started something one summer when GEM's hours were being reduced down, because they do get titrated down. And so we saw that we had an opening on Thursdays, so we started our own little camp. We called it Thursdays with Gem. And every Thursday, and I planned out the whole summer, sent it to everybody that he'd ever gone to school with, all the moms, and I said, you don't have to RSVP, but this is where we will be on these Thursdays during the summer. And then we blogged about it. There are blogs about it if you want to look at what we went back and did. And so each Thursday, a different kid would show up.
Amazing.
And we never had everybody all at once, but we would be, at a different museum. And my kid loves to go to museums now. He linked that up to it's so a good time.
Absolutely.
And I only had to do that once a week, because going to a museum once a week is enough. But it's got to be fun for you too.
Yeah, and the zoo also has a lot of activities, planned activities. There's a lot of, depending on where you are. In LA, we had a lot of resources. We had children's museums and children's experience museums, those types of places. That's, you really have to program it so that they're occupied. That's extremely important.
And look at your Chamber of Commerce, and look online for wherever you live for a calendar.
Right.
So that if you live in East Podunk, you look up the East Podunk calendar, and everything that your community is doing and your library is doing, and the concerts in the park and things like that will be listed on that. And usually there's they automate it so that it's every Saturday there's this, and every Monday there's this, so that you can sort of fill in and then rearrange around that. There's lots to do.
Right.
And some of it is really good for our kids.
That's right. And sometimes we get to the mode of we're just so tired and burnt out, and sometimes I remember feeling like afraid, because some days I'd be so exhausted, and I had the three of them, and I was like, oh, I can't handle this. And when you go into it with that sort of burnt out perspective or attitude, it just drags on and becomes longer. Whereas if you get a good night's sleep and in the morning say to yourself, I'm going to have fun today, you know, these are the moments that you'll appreciate later, where you have the opportunity to spend time with your kids.
And I love the thing about rewards. I think that, you know, that's wonderful. But I want to remind you, it's got to be rewarding for you too.
Absolutely, that's so important.
And the swimming thing is great, because that'll wear them out.
Yes.
You know, which is always good. I don't know if you saw, we don't have it in today's news, but a new study just came out that showed that table tennis as physical activity helped kids on the autism spectrum. Steve Edelson actually posted it. So from Autism Research Institute, that they did an intensive 6-week program of table tennis with kids who were a little bit older than your kids. But they found that it was effective at helping them with executive functions, planning, and they tested better in terms of stress, and I think cognition as well.
Visual, I would imagine, visual perception.
I want to get a ping pong table now.
That's so great.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we forget sometimes how much the fun stuff can really help our kids.
Absolutely.
Okay, so talking about, because I mentioned that my son's hours had been titrated down. Somebody wrote in and said, hi, Dr. Doreen, my son is a client of CARD. He was getting 40 hours of ABA through Magellan, but Magellan decreased to 35 and now 25. Will that affect him? And she goes on to say that you have met the boys. I've shared with you who the family is, but we're not going to tell the audience. They continue to write, does he need the full 40 hours, or will this be okay for now? I'm stressing out. Please help.
You know, I think that, and I can't really be fair and respond fairly, because I'd have to look at where the kids are right now, where the boys are. I know the family and always love to see the boys, and they are doing really well. But for me to say 25 is okay versus 40, my initial instinct is to say no, it's not okay. If we had recommended 35, then we need 35 or whatever it is. And the other thing I want to tell you is not to be afraid of the appeal process. Most of our appeals win, let's just say that. I think there's this process where funding agencies, and I don't want to name just one, but most insurance companies will just do the initial cut, thinking that most parents will be afraid or hesitant to appeal. The appeal is not a major process. It's a bunch of paperwork. If you want to appeal, which I highly recommend you appeal, you just need to get in touch with us. Our paralegal, Shari, is actually, we have set up a whole infrastructure for her to help parents with appeals. So if you want to do that, send me an email, and I will be happy to connect you with Shari, and she'll give you she'll tell you the exact language to put on your appeal application, and we'll see what happens. There's no harm.
Okay. We're almost out of time, so we only have time for one quick answer to this. Hi, how do I reduce my son's hand flapping? He's 6, going into the 1st grade. He only does it when excited. Do I block it? Do we practice some other kind of more socially acceptable hand motion? And thank you so much.
Sure. Yes, and you have both ideas pretty good. Those, you know, like one of the things we teach our kids is to just we give them an object to hold. When they hold an object, it will prevent them from hand flapping, obviously. So, and you can also teach him to put usually kids are hand flapping, and it's accompanied with jumping up and down during excitement or something. But you know, you would be able to teach him how to put his hands in his pockets, maybe. How to express his excitement in a different way, or perhaps hold an object, or perhaps transfer it to something like clapping, which might look more appropriate. But yes, you block, you redirect, you replace, and a combination of those things will eliminate the hand flapping.
I especially love the replace. I think that's the thing that we all forget.
Absolutely.
Is the replace, and that's the thing that's so important.
And I think it's also important to teach our kids just to say, I'm so excited.
Yes. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, that's all the time that we have for today with Dr. Grant-Boucher, but we adore you.
Thank you so much, Shannon. It's always lovely to be here and to help and listen to questions, and a wonderful week to everyone.